Hello everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel eLearn Skills. My name is Emmanuel and my job is to help you simplify programming so that you can start building your dream project as soon as possible. In the last tutorial, I spoke about how to set up React with Vite and Tailwindcss. So in today's tutorial, like you can see on my slide, I say welcome back. So what we are going to be talking about is we're going to actually build a portfolio website with React and Tailwind CSS. And you are going to learn a whole lot. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish up this whole project in one go, but if not, I will split it into two and then so that you can watch the second part. But if we're able to go and complete it in one go, that is super fine. And the things you are going to be learning in this particular video, you're going to be learning React component, useState hook, and then Smoothscroll, ReactIcons, tenary operators in JavaScript, using images in React and Tailwind CSS. And I'm actually not going to be putting the images directly in the application, taking the image link from maybe Pexel, and then we're going to be using it in our React component. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, welcome back. Now, the actual project we're going to be building is this one right here. And as you can see, this is, I built this entirely with Tailwind CSS and React.js. And you can see, if you click on any of this link, it scrolls to the portion there. So we're using Smoothscroll to be able to smoothly, scroll to those portions. You can see portfolio, it scrolls to the portfolio portion. Experience, it scrolls to the experience part, and then contact. And also, I forgot to add that the last thing I'm going to be showing you here is how to actually connect that form, contact form, to that you're able to submit the form to an actual API. So of course it's not an API that I built, it's a generic API. It's a service provider. It allows you to also get that notification in your email. So we're going to be able to set that up as well. So basically, that's all you're going to be learning. Let me just show you the way the app works. So you can see the hero section. And if you click on, you can see the button, the animation here. So you're going to also be learning Tailwind animations, Tailwind CSS animation, all right? So you're going to be learning all of that, and also mobile responsiveness with Tailwind CSS. Okay, mobile, or let's just say, yeah, mobile responsiveness. All right, so all of that you are going to be learning. So let me switch to mobile screen just so you see that this is actually responsive. All right, so you can see it's actually responsive. Okay, so on the mobile screen, this is what it looks like. You can see everything is neatly arranged. You can see the form is standing out, everything is standing out. And also I implemented a mobile screen, mobile navigation bar. If you click on any of the buttons, it scrolls to that portion. If you go to portfolio, for instance, it scrolls to that portion, and it also closes the navigation bar. You can see how it scrolls. So those are some really cool stuff that you're going to be learning. And on the desktop screen, you can see the way it's also this part, how it goes to the different social network. If you click on the LinkedIn, it actually opens my LinkedIn on a new tab. So if you go to, say, GitHub, it opens up my GitHub account right here. And if you click on this, it also attempts to open my email client. And if you click on resume, it actually downloads my resume, my CV. So without further ado, let's start coding, let's start building our own. so that you also can have your own version up and running. And of course, you're free to use your own asset files, your images, and all of those things. So this is what we are working with. This is where we left off in the last tutorial. So I'm going to open that up. Okay, I also forgot. I'm going to also show you guys how to actually deploy this on a live server. I'm going to show you like this particular version. You can see my local. I also have it on my name .netlify, and you can see it's working on the live server. As well, I also have a custom domain that I also redeployed to. So if you open this on a custom domain like this, you see this is also working. So I will also show you how to do that, so that you can also change the domain that the Netlify gives, and you're able to buy a domain name and also connect it to your Netlify application. So that's some of those. And how you can see at the top here, you can see that it is my image that is showing instead of this image that we currently have, the Vite or React app image. So that being said, let's get started. So like I said, let me also add that I'm going to show you how to deploy on Netlify. So deploying on Netlify. So using custom domain also is so part of what I want to show you how to do. All right, so let's get started into actual coding. So this is the app setup, and that is all we have for now. Maybe because I want you guys to be able to see everything clearly, let me just have it this way. I'm going to also zoom in a little bit just so you can see it better. All right, so now the first thing you want to do in your application is to create a new folder in your SRC folder. So create a folder, call it component, just like that. So don't mind this page. I'm probably going to just delete it, or maybe I'll use it for something else later. So let's just have it like that. So don't mind these pages because we're not going to use it. So the one we're going to use is this component and then maybe asset folder, as the case may be. And in the app.js, I'm going to remove this guy. Or we are going to actually need a component like this. So you might not remove it. All right. In the components, the first component we are going to work with is the navigation bar, because if you look at the app here, let me maximize, you will see that we have a navigation bar that has my name here, and it also has some navigation buttons here. So how do we create something like that here also? So what we're going to do is to right click on the component folder and create a new file, call it navbar.jsx, because we are using React with Vite. Vite, one of their recommendations is that you use JSX. That way it doesn't give you error. All right, so now instead of, I could actually do const navbar equals to, and I'm going to be using arrow function here. So I'm going to put arrow here, put a curly brace and put a return, and then I'm going to put a React fragment here. So React fragment is just HTML tag, just to, because in your return statement you have to return something, and then I'm going to say export default navbar, just like that. So you have successfully created the navbar component. And this is how we're going to be doing for the entire application. So, but with the extension, I can do RAFCE rather. So that way it generates what I just typed for me. It created the arrow function, also gave me a div to start with, and also imported React. So, but in my case, I will be deleting this one majorly because I'm probably not going to use it. So, and React doesn't require that you import React again. In the previous version, you have to import React from React. In these versions, you don't need to. All right, so you can see my structure here. We have navbar.jsx, and then in here, we can start coding. All right, so to start with our navigation bar, one of those things we want to have is, what do we start with? Let's start with the list of item. Let's start with the list of item we're going to be using. So to use, because really to create a navigation bar, you need maybe home, about, contact, all of those things. If you have been learning HTML with CSS, you pretty much will be familiar with this. But if you are using a JavaScript framework, just like React, you know, it's nicer if you can actually iterate through some of those lists instead of hard coding them. So that's part of what we're going to be using. And in this case, I'm going to be creating that list. So I'm going to say const link, or links rather. So I'm going to say equals to, um, and put my curly brace here. So in this place, I'm going to have ID and ID1, just like you're working with API. So you will get to understand this later as we continue. Of course, for the most part of this particular tutorial, you are going to be learning a lot of this. All right, so the first link we're going to have is going to be home link. So I'm going to say home. So I'm going to put a comma, and all of them are about 5 of them. So I'm going to duplicate, I'm going to highlight them and duplicate it a couple of times. So that's the first one. Second one will be 2, and the second one is about. So the number 3 here is going to be portfolio, and then the number 4 is going to be experience, and then the last one is going to be contact. And don't forget to change the ID to 5. All right, so now that we have done that, now this is not useful yet because we are not using it yet. So we're going to just terminate with semicolon. So we're going to be calling this link when we need to start using. So let's start with the styling. Now, one cool thing about Tailwind CSS is, like, if you are familiar with Bootstrap, you will understand what I'm about to say. Now, Bootstrap just provide already written CSS classes. So you don't have to actually write the CSS rules, so you just use the classes. But the limitation with Bootstrap that I found is that most of the things are already made. So you have to still be writing custom CSS. Now, what Tailwind CSS provide is that you could actually use their own already made classes mixed with custom CSS, but not really writing the custom. They just give you a lot of flexibility to write a lot of custom things. So the first thing I'm going to do here is to have this div. Inside this div, I'm going to create a second div. And inside that one, I'm going to have h1. So the h1 is going to have, whatever name you want to call it. So let me call it my name. Let's just say, for example. So so the next thing I'm going to do here is, let me minimize this so that I can see everything correctly. So after this div, I'm going to have a UL, and that UL is going to have a single li. So now the single li is what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be doing the iteration, but for sample purpose, just so we can see the design, I'm going to just put home. So after the styling, we'll be able to actually look through, and it's going to work. So now the next thing we're going to do here is to create a class So in React, you don't use class. So in React, you don't use just class because JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, which means it also uses classes. So it's going to conflict with class as a word in React. That's why it's a rule that you don't use a class as you don't use class, you use class name instead. So the first thing we're going to do here is I'm going to say flex. So, and if you hover over it, you're going to see the CSS attribute that is written for this. So flex is to display flex. So that means what this is going to do is it's going to look into this div and see similar uh, similar unique divs that if there are more than one div, so it's going to put them side by side. That's the implication. So so let's move on. So I'm going to say justify between, justify, and actually you can actually type the word together, just justify between, just like this, and it's going to complete it for you. And the extension I'm using for that is Tailwind extension, Tailwind CSS, something like that. So not this one, Tailwind. So I think I'm using this one, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. So it has about 3 million downloads. So it's a very useful extension, allows auto completion and all those kind of things. So that's what I'm using to do this kind of thing. All right, so we're going to say item center. So if you are familiar with CSS, you will really understand some of these things. So for justify between an item center to work, you need to display flex basically. So, and then I want to also make the width to be full page to extend to the edges of, so I'm going to say W full. So that's just a Tailwind CSS class. So I also want the height to be 20, and you can check out what value is that 20. So it is, the height is 5 rem, right? So 5 rem. So then I want all the text to be white, text white, just like that. And I want the background to be black, and it should have a padding of 4. So I'm going to say BG black, and then padding. So padding X is left to right. So I want it to be 4 so that the text will have space in between them. All right, so now one thing I forgot is that I forgot to also import this component in the app.jsx. So I need to go back into the app.jsx because app.jsx is like the way the React works is that React only have one index.html, which is this one right here. So everything we are writing, all the components are going to appear only in this root div in here, every of those components. So what will happen is that the main component that React recognize as the major component is the app.jsx. So in our main JSX, you can see we are importing app.jsx here. So that is the only component that is going to be rendering. So because that's the only component that's going to be rendering, we are going to be putting everything we have in our component folder here inside the app.jsx so that they can all display in stack. So what I'm going to do here is to import the navbar. So I'm going to say navbar. So, and I'm going to auto import by clicking like this. So it's going to automatically look for the location of navbar and import it for me. I'm going to comment this out because I don't need it yet. All right, so if we look at the screen now, you see we have this right here, navbar. You can see my name here, and then you can see the home. So you can see they are side by side. All right, so let's move on with our customization. We're not done with the navbar yet. I'm just, trying to let you see a couple of things. So the next thing we're going to do is to actually style the H1. So I'm going to say class name. So in the class name of the H1, I want the text to be XL5. That means the size should increase. Okay, I think I mistyped that. It's 5XL rather, 5XL. So if you over it, you see that font size is 3 rem, line height is 1. So that's how to use a Tailwind CSS. And also, I want the font. Okay, so now there's a customization I need to do here. So in our Tailwind configuration here, I want to actually extend the theme to also accommodate a couple of things. And what I want to do actually here is in our CSS component, in the index.css component, I want to go to Google Font to download Railway font, just so that my name is going to be looking different. All right, so to do that, what I'm going to do is in the index.css, we're going to add a couple of things. So, and to be able to do that, what you need to do is you can see the text is bigger now. All right, so I'm going to go to Google Fonts. So in the Google Fonts, let me open it right here. What I'm looking for is Railway font. So I think I may already have it here. So which font is this one? So I might need to remove all of this. Okay, so I actually need, apart from Railway font, I also need another font. Okay, so if you look at it here, I actually have that font here, but just so you understand how to actually look for the font yourself, I want to kind of clear what we have here currently. So I'm going to remove all of this. So I've removed all of them so that we can actually search for railway. So sorry guys, railway is spelled this way. So railway font, this is the font. And once it's loaded, you want to add all of these. So you want to add the one for this, one for this, one for this. You want to add pretty much everything. So once you have added all of them, I've not finished adding all of them. So that way you can use all of the different family members, like the extra bold thing, or the likes. So now to use it, you need to click on the import. So the import here will provide you the style. So ignore the style tag, just copy the in-between code. So I'm going to right click here and copy. So I'm going back into my code, and up at the top of our index.css, make sure it's index.css, paste it right there. So that is for Railway. So the second font we're going to look for is the Great Vibes font. So yes. Now let's move on. So with that, I'm going to take out all of these fonts as well, because I don't want to copy them together. All right, so I've deleted Railway now. I want to search for the other font. So here now, I'm going to look for Good Vibes. So Good Vibe font. So Good Vibe font is what we're going to be using. Oh, sorry. So Railway font is what we are using globally, but Good Vibe is the one we are using for the company name, or maybe your name, or whatever we're using. So you are going to do exactly the same thing we did the other time. I think this one just has one. So I'm going to just click on that. And I think I'm hiding this, so I need to unhide this so that I can show. So you click on import here, and then you kind of have to copy this. Once you are done copying this, you go back to your VS Code in your index.css and then paste the Good Vibe font. Now, to make this work, because Tailwind is theme based, you're going to say layer. So layer here, you're going to say base, and you're going to put a curly brace and HTML and then another curly brace. You can now say font family, and then the font family, because we are using Railway, uh, I think what you need to do there is to, I think I omitted something. So they actually provided that. So I'm just going to copy it here so that we don't waste plenty of time, because I don't want to start searching for Railway again. But basically, this is what you need: Railway, sans serif, and all. So once that is done, so we're going to also need to do a little bit of customization in our extend in the theme section of our Tailwind configuration. So if you follow the last tutorial, I already set all of this up, so we don't need to do it again. All right, so to get this to work, you need to say font family, just like this, and then you put your curly brace. So inside the font family, you can call it maybe signature. You can call it any name you want actually, but in this case, we want to call it signature. This is a custom name. All right. So because I want us to address it as a signature. So and then here now, this is very important. You need to type this one exactly. So this is great vibes. So great vibes. Great vibe is the name of the font that we imported here the other time. So, and this is specific to the signature alone. Anywhere you use signature, you are going to be able to use this great vibe. So, but every other part of the application is going to be using Railway. So that's why we said HTML here. So basically, so once that is done, I think we are good to go. We can already start using it. So in our navbar, so that's part of why we also came here. So in our navbar section, we want to customize the font here, the name here, to use uh, that particular great vibe font. So we're going to say font signature, just like this. And with just this adjustment, if you go back to our app, let me close this, you can see it already takes form and this is not affected. So that is cool. Let's move on. So with all of this done, the next thing we want to do is also to put ML. So margin left, we want to set it to 2. You know, I'm doing all of this because I already built this, so there's no point trying to recustomize it in a way that will make the app look bad. All right, so now in this case, now I want to also in the UL, so I want to have a class name, and I want to say flex, and I want to say, okay, so let's just say flex. That means every member in the li are going to stay side by side. So now you remember that in the previously, when we started, we created a list of links up here. So how do we actually use this link in our application? So in our UL, should it be in the UL? Yes, in the UL, I'm going to say, so to be able to iterate, we are going to use um, map to map over all of those links. So to use that, I'm going to put a curly brace here, and I'm going to say the name of all of these is links. So I'm going to copy it and put it down here, links dot map. So I'm going to put two brackets, and I'm going to, because I want to destructure all of the components, I'm going to say ID and I'm going to say link, because I want to address each of those elements as link. So after this bracket, I'm going to put arrow and I'm going to put a bracket here. So just like that. And in here, I'm going to put my li. So my li here. Now, one of the things that React always complain about is anytime you are iterating like this, you need to use key. So I'm going to say key. So key here is going to have the ID, and then this other one is going to now have link. Sorry, link. Now the implication of this is that React will be able to iterate through this and put all of these elements on the screen. So let's look at what it looks like now. And you can see all of those elements are side by side, although they are jammed together, but they are there. So now to get them to space out, one of the things we are going to have to do here is to actually style it. All right, so uh, our hairline here is going to have a couple of uh, Tailwind CSS classes. So I think this was closed, yes. So in the after the ID, I'm going to say, okay, so inside the li, should have been the li. Yes, inside the li. Let me just format it a little bit, just so we have something, going on. So I'm just formatting it. This is not coding. So I'm going to say class name, and I'm going to have px, that's padding left and right, to be 4. So that means each of the elements we have space 4. Then cursor pointer. All right. So then each of the element, I want them to be capitalized. You can see all of them are in small letter. I did that on purpose so that we can use the capitalize feature. Capitalize. So that means each of the first character will be in capital letter. Then font medium. So after font medium, I want text gray 500. So just like that. So after we have that, then I want on over, I want the text to also scale. So I'm going to say scale maybe 105, just that type of scale. So then now, if you go back to the site now, you see that it will actually, they are scaling, but it's a little jumpy. So to make it scroll smoothly, and that's talking about Tailwind CSS animation, you have to put duration. So I'm going to set the duration to maybe 200. 200 is enough. So now, if you go back there, this is very subtle, but it actually takes time before the animation completes. So that makes perfect sense now. All right, so we are making progress with our code already. All right, so now we are done with outputting all of this, but then of course this is not the way we would want our navigation bar to look, because if you look at this, this is actually touching the edges. So we're going to fix that in a bit. Let's just move on. All right, so let me try and check what's in here. Root index CSS apps. Oh, so the problem is that we actually have this going on, this app CSS. So I'm going to actually delete it because we don't need it. Of course, this is going to complain because do we have it imported? So app CSS is there. I'm going to remove it. So that's the reason our navigation bar is not sticking to the top, guys. So you can see it's working properly. It's looking the way it should now. So we have succeeded in the desktop version of the navigation bar, but that is not the only thing. We need to also create a mobile navigation bar. So to do that, still in the navigation section, what we are going to do is we are going to actually create a new UL. So, okay, so after completing this and having this div, so to have our mobile navigation bar, what we're going to do is we're going to create a state to be able to check if uh, if we are currently in the desktop navigation bar or mobile view, like the breakpoint. So we'll be able to determine that. So, and what we're going to use for that is, of course, we're just creating it for now. We're not going to use it yet until we're done with the design. So we're going to say const. So I'm going to say nav and set nav, just like this, sorry. So I'm going to say use state. So in my case, I want to be auto importing. This is a good practice. So you can see automatically use state got imported. So that hook is what we're going to be using to determine whether we're currently in the mobile navigation bar or the desktop navigation bar. So, and I'm going to set the default state to false. So, and I'm going to terminate that with semicolon. So, of course, this is complaining because we're not currently using nav and set nav, but that is fine for now. So, still inside this div, the main div, we're going to create uh, a new UL. So, this new UL, inside it, we're going to have maybe a single li home as well, and that's fine. So, in here, we're going to say class name. Let's set it to flex and flex call. So if you over flex call, you can see flex direction column. That means the previous one is first flex direction row. That means side by side. So in this case, we want them to stack on top of each other. So that's the reason we are doing this. And I want to justify item center and then also items center, that's align item center. So I want to position absolute and I want the top to be 0 and left also to be 0. The width left will also be 0. Then the width will be full. So that means it will span across the screen. Then height will be screen. So that means the entire screen. So then we are now going to use gradient. So now the way to use gradient in Tailwind CSS is you are going to say, because we are using the gradient for the background, bg gradient. So now, is it to bottom or to top or to left or to right? You understand? So now we want it to bottom, the gradient to span from top to bottom. And aside that, I also want the gradient from black. So that means it's going to start, the gradient will start from black to another color, let's say to gray. So in this case, we want it to be gray, maybe 800, that's fine. And then text. So the text are going to be gray 500, gray, gray, gray 500, just like this. If you already look at the screen, we should see something. You can see here, it already covers the whole thing, and that's exactly what we want. So but then we are going to actually be using state to to move around it. So the hairline is also going to have a couple of Tailwind classes. So in this case, I'm going to say class name. So in the class name px4, that's padding left and right of 4, cursor to be pointer. So now the cursor is going to be pointer. That means when you put your cursor on it, it's going to look like a clickable object. So then I want each of the items to also be capitalized. Then py padding top to bottom is going to be padding of, and then text of 4XL. That means I want the text to be really big. So you can see they are big now because, of course, on the mobile screen, would you really want that navigation text to look big? All right, so the next thing you want to do is on over, you want to scale. So the scale is just going to be just like we had the other time, 105, and then you're going to set the duration So let's set duration of 200 or maybe 300. That's totally fine as well. All right. So now if I hover on it now, it should look a little jumpy, which is fine. Now, so here is the technical part. So now let me iterate first. Uh, so in this case now, we already got what we needed. That is, we already styled it. So how do we now get all of those items to start working here as well? So what I'm going to do here, just like we did before, is I'm going to put the same style of code we had before. I'm going to say, what am I going to do? Yeah, I'm going to say key, obviously. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to say links.map. So the third one is going to be because I want to destructure and I want to say link as well. So that's fine. In here, I'm going to use arrow function and set this. Then I want to get this in between it. That's fine. So the next thing I'm going to do here is to also use a key. So the key is going to be ID, and then the link is now going to be our hard-coded value here. So I'm going to replace this with a dynamic value link. So using this now, if you look at the screen, you see that we have all of these items. But now we don't see the previous one that we built, which we obviously want to see when we're actually on a desktop screen. So what we're going to do here now is to actually use our state. So you can see we have nav, set nav, and all of that going on there. So the first thing I'm going to do up in here, okay, okay. The first thing I want to do is this particular UL, the first big UL, we want to hide it on a mobile screen. And Tailwindcss is a mobile first approach framework. So if I say hidden, that means it is going to be hidden in the mobile and all screen, but we want on the medium screen. That means any screen from minimum width of 768 is going to display flex. So that's about that. And once we are done with that, the next thing we want to now do is, okay, so now let's now determine what displays, what shows up when, what shows up, what's going to be a determiner of. So if I actually put this on a mobile screen now, you can see this is showing, but then if we come to desktop screen, nothing really has changed. It's still showing just this. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually show an icon. So to show an icon on the screen, we are going to use ReactIcons. So I'm going to open a new terminal here. So I'm going to say npm install ReactIcons. Now I'm going to install this as a dependency. So that's why I'm using the tag D React icons. So what it's going to do is it's going to actually save it with your project. The reason for that is if you are deploying to netlify, netlify is going to complain that it doesn't know this React icon. So if I save it as dependency, it's going to be a part of the app that is going to deploy, so it's not going to complain. So let's see how that goes. So I'm going to pause the video. Once the installation is done, we're going to continue. All right, cool. So now this is done. So the next thing to do is to actually use the icon. So the icons we're going to use is we need the far bars and far times. So far times is the X icon that will show up on the screen, and then the far bar is the one that shows like a breadcrumb, so that it shows that we are on mobile screen, and then when you click on the breadcrumb, it shows the X and the it displays the icon. It displays the item for mobile navigation. So at the top of my UL here, at the top of my mobile UL, I'm going to create a div. So inside that div, that's where I'm going to, show my icon. So I'm going to say FA bar. This is taking time to load. FA bars is bars, right? Okay, this is not showing up, no problem. What we need to do is manually import it. That's fine. So I'm going to say uh, import what? Import FA bar. So FA bars and then FA times, and we are importing them from FA, from ReactIcons/FA. So from ReactIcons/FA. So you can see it here. So I can just copy the two of them, copy. So I'm using Windows 10 multi-copy feature by clicking and copying two things simultaneously. So now in here, in my div here, I'm going to paste the first one, which is FA times, and then I can duplicate that and then do for the second one, which is FA bars. So now we are going to actually use our state, the useState that we created the other time. And what useState is going to do is going to help us to be able to determine when one of them is clicked, is going to turn the other one to, is going to turn it to false. So we're going to use onClick to switch between the two icons. So if you look at it now, we actually see the icon. Yeah, the icon is not displaying because this particular one is covering the whole thing. That's fine too. So what we're going to do now is we're not going to do any styling. We're going to use onClick. So onClick is an event in React. So of course, onClick is also in normal JavaScript. So I'm going to set the set nav to false when one of them is clicked. So not nav. This onClick actually should go inside this div. All right. So then this div is also going to have some classes. So I'm going to come like this and say class name. So just so we can have it work the way it should. So I'm going to say cursor pointer. So that's when you put your cursor towards it, it's going to look pointed here. So that's padding right. I'm going to give it 4. And then z index. That means it's going to always be at the top. Z index is going to be 10. And then text gray. So that means the color is going to be grayish. So on top is black. So it's going to look some level of whitish. So at the mid screen, that means screen above, screen with the minimum width above the mobile screen is going to hide it. So, but anyone that is below, that is within the mobile screen, is going to show it. So if you look at it now, are we not having anything here yet? Okay, that's fine. Let's just continue. Okay, so we have this here now, these two times and this. All right, so, it's not showing because we are actually above this thing. So if look at it now here, you can see they are showing up here now because we are now below the size that we specify. So if I go responsive, you can see as soon as we hit that that screen, that breakpoint is going to show up. So all right, that's fine. So let me just leave it at responsive screen here so that we can be able to toggle in between. So let's go back into our code. So in here, the next thing I want to do is to actually create a ternary operator. Just like I said, I was going to be showing you guys. I'm going to say when it is nav, when the navigation bar is showing, we want to display far times. We want to display this one, and then I want to bump up the size a little bit. So I'm going to say size, maybe 30. That's fine. So then when that is not showing, that's else. The else part, we want to show this. So, and I want the size of this also to bump up to, let's say, 30 as well. So that is fine. So if you look at it now and I scroll down, you can see we are able to toggle in between the two of them. So if this is displaying X, if it is normal navigation bar, it's going to be showing this. And if it's beyond the screen, the right screen is not going to show. Now, how do we get this out of the way when we're actually on desktop view? So what we're going to do with that is we're going to do something similar, just the way we have done the other iteration. So we're going to say, okay, so I'm going to say here, nav, then just so we don't have error, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to put it in a bracket like this. So the whole thing here, I'm going to put them inside the whole UL here. I'm going to put it inside here. So that should work now. So if I go back, you can see we can now see our navigation bar. If I go to mobile screen now, as soon as I hit the screen point where it's the mobile screen supposed to clicking, like the breakpoint at I think 700 and something, at the point where the screen is 768, minimum of 768. So that's exactly what we are doing here. So and if I click this, it's going to show the mobile navigation. If I click the X, it's going to close it. So that works fine. So now, congratulations, you have been able to create a mobile and desktop navigation bar. So that is that about that. So let's move on. So now we've completed the navigation bar. I think the other thing I might want to also add is, let me already add the, should I add the smooth scroll now? No, let's just continue. So when we get there, I'm going to show you. All right. So the next thing after the now if you can look at this and this, you see that this is similar. The navigation bar here and here looks pretty the same. So now the image here is just my image in there. So we can replace this by going into the index.html here, and you can say maybe Akinbare. That's my name. So that's my second name actually. So I'm putting in here, and the logo that is showing is here and is inside the public folder here. So to replace that logo, I can decide to actually get an image online. Let's see if this will work. So I'm going to go ahead and say pexels. So on pexels, I can just maybe black guy because I'm black. So I'm just going to copy the, now if you right click now, you copy the image address, not the image link. I don't want to download it, I just want to copy the address. So copy like this, and if I go here, let's see if this will work. I'm going to just paste the link here. Uh-oh, I think I highlighted the quotation mark. I'm not supposed to do that. So now if you put it up here, let's see if fully that works. So, and you can see the image of the person actually shows up. So here, so you can actually replace that with your own custom image, and you can see the person's image is showing up. That's the same technique I used in my own case. All right, although I actually put the image directly in the app. So, and that will also make your application to load slower. So that's just a hack in there. So the very next thing you want to do is let's have our home page. So the home page is also is not as complicated as the navigation bar. So all right, so let's move on. So to create the home page, you are going to have to right click here on the component and then create home.jsx just like that. And I'm going to use my favorite, shortcut RAFCE rather. So you can see home is already created for us, and I can say home here. And in my app.jsx, I have to import home as well. So I'm going to say home, sorry, because I want it to auto import, I have to click this, and you can see my home is here. Oh, so this is wrong. That's not the home I want to import. Okay, so let me delete that. I want to say home. Okay, so I think should be this one. Yes, that's the right one. So now, if you go back to the application now, you see home here. So of course, we're going to have to customize the whole thing. It's just for you to see that actually appearing there. So now the next thing we want to do on our home page is to create a name. Now, name is not required in React for the home page to work. I'm using name here because I want React Smoothscroll to be able to, it's just like you're using ID and you are targeting the ID, so that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. All right, so I want to get rid of this so that my compiler stop yelling error there. So because it's no longer required for you to actually import React, but that's fine. That's just by the way. All right, so the next thing I want to do after that is to create a class. So the class is going to, okay, let's not do the design for, let's just create a structure. So after that div, I'm going to have another div. Inside that, I'm going to have another div. So inside this div, I'm going to have h2, and then inside the h, after the h2, I'm going to have a p tag. So that's fine. So after that, I'm going to, after the p tag, let's also have another div after the p tag, right? After the p tag, we're going to have another div, and after that div, what else? Okay, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine. And then after all of that, let's also have a div. After these two div, we're going to have a different div. So in that div, we're going to have an image, img, just like this. So let's just leave that at that. So that's going to be hero image. And the hero image, we're not going to iterate. So let me just go and look for an image online just to use. Okay, so I think this guy is looking slick, or maybe this one. I can just copy the image address. There's the copy image address. Copy image address, yes. Right. So in here, I'm going to just put the image address here. So, and if you look at the site, we should have an image working. You can see it's looking so big. So we're going to address that also. All right. So now the next thing we're going to do is to actually start customizing. So let's say here H screen. That means the height is going to be screen. So make sure you're actually typing all of these CSS rules correctly. So screen we set height of 100 VH, that's viewport height. So then W full, that means the width is going to be full width, and we're going to have BG gradient. So we can actually do a gradient of yeah, let's say to bottom, also to bottom, and then from, let's say, from pink, I'm just saying from pink. So let's say from this type of pink, via, okay, so which, because I'm trying to actually look at the color of his clothes, is this pink really? And try to make the application look, very close to what we have. Let's say via black, via black. So, so let's say gray. So gray what? Let's say gray 800. So let's look at what that looks like now. So you can see we actually have that kind of background that has a touch of his own clothes too. So that's just what I'm going for. All right. So the next thing to style is the next div after that. So I don't want to be copying, I want to actually be typing it just so you really are seeing those classes. That's why I'm doing it like this. So maximum width of screen, maximum width of screen large. And if you over it, you also see that a maximum width of 1024 pixel is what we are setting here. So the next thing you want to also do is MX auto. So that's margin left and right auto. That means it's going to try to centralize the content. So flex, flex, flex call. So that means it's going to be in column, not in row. All right. So items center. So that's align center, justify center as well. So justify center. Then the height will be full. The height will be full. Then we are going to have a padding left and right of 4. And then at the mid screen, at the medium screen only, or a screen of minimum of so that's any screen of minimum of 7, is it 760 something? So we want to flex of row. That means, so flex of row, that means they should stand side by side, but on small screen they should stack on top of each other. That is basically what we're saying in this case for this particular div. That means it's going to put this div on top of each other on mobile screen, but on desktop screen and tablet is going to stay side by side. So on the H1, on the H2, I can say I am maybe I'm an accountant. Of course, you're not an accountant if you're actually watching the video. You are a programmer. So we can say I am a front end front end developer. Maybe that's fine. So front end developer, just like that. And then I'm going to use Lorem in this case, just to, all right. So in this case, I'm going to use Lorem 50 just so we don't waste all of our time. Lorem 50, because I don't want to use all of our time to start planning content. All right. So because this is not a content video, or this is not a write-up video. All right. So once we are done with that, the next thing we want to do here is to actually have this other part, this div. So, okay, I think I made a mistake there. So in that div, we're going to have a button, and then we're going to call it portfolio or something. So, but just to cut time, I'm going to already start using the React Smoothscroll. So in this case, I'm going to actually install, you can see my server is still running, I'm just on the second terminal. So don't think my server is not running. So in this case, to use React Smoothscroll, you need to actually install the package. So I'm going to say npm install as dependency. so that netlify doesn't complain later. So React Smoothscroll, React scroll. So it's going to, once it's done, we're going to continue. All right, that is done now. So since I've installed it now, in this case, I'm going to, instead of creating a button here, I'm going to actually create it as a link. So I'm going to say link. So let's see if that actually import the right thing. Okay, yeah, it actually imports link from React scroll, which is pretty cool. That's what we're going to actually use. So in this case now, it's supposed to be a button. All right, so it's going to be a button, and that button is going to go to portfolio. So I'm just trying to kind of cut time so that we don't waste all the time trying to explain up and down. So you are going to understand what, because I'm going to actually explain them. So you are going to have to say smooth. So just like this part of the property, then you are going to set the duration. So how long is going to scroll. All right. So and I'm going to have a class name. So the class name of what? A lot of classes in there. So we're going to have text white, then w fit, and if it's over it, you can see the width fit content is what we want it to have. And then in here, I'm going to also have px of 6 and then py of 3, then flex items center. Then I also want the button to be rounded. It's rounded MD. So, and if you over it, you see they created a border radius of this rem value for that. All right. So then I also want it to be a gradient color. So let's say PG gradient, gradient to right. So I want the button to have that color to the right side. So then from let's say let's just give it slate, from slate 500 to gray 800, because I really don't want to be messing around with the colors so that we don't have a very bad design. So also, because currently I'm teaching, I'm not really taking time to think through how the look is going to be. So yeah, so now I don't want it to be a self-enclosed tag because it's a button. So I actually want to close it here like this. So here in between, I'm going to actually have the portfolio name. So portfolio, just like this. So as we have it now, I'm going to now have the icon. So the icon, I want it to be in a span tag. So the icon that we're going to use in this case is going to, and let me also quickly show you how to actually find, you can see how this is looking already. See how the web application is beginning to turn up. So we can go to React icons, and in the React icons here, you can actually choose any of their, let's say, icons. So you can see there are different icons that we have here. So let's say arrow right, something like this. So you can see the different ones that we have here. Let's just choose any random one. So once you click on it, it already copied the the code that you need for you. So what I need to do in here is to paste the code here. See, right? Okay, I can just put it here. So now this is coming from AI. It's always, most of the time, always coming from AI. Like the first two letters, it's always what you need for the import. So you're going to have to say import that particular thing you copied from, I want it to use full color, ReactIcons slash AI, sorry, slash AI, just like this. Once you are done with that, that should be working. So, and if you look at it on the screen now in our application, it's taking time, so you can see we now have the icon here. Pretty cool, right? So let's move. So I'm not actually filling that color, but for example purpose, just follow along. All right. So now that we have the icon, we might also want to give it a size of maybe 25 or maybe 30, thereabouts. So then what else can we do? We can also give it a margin left. So class name of ml1. All right. So now let's style the span a little bit also. So the span. So I want the span to also now to over, I want it to rotate 90 degrees. That means it's going to point down. You understand? Because the part, what we want it to point to portfolio is actually down in our application. So duration, let it be maybe 300 so that it can actually slowly look down. But now here's a problem. If you over it, it actually looks down, which is pretty cool. But if you go anywhere else within the button, it doesn't work until you over on the arrow itself. Now that's not the behavior you want. You want, once you over on any part of the button, it should go down. So to be able to achieve that, uh, what the provision that Tailwindcss provide for us is that in the parent in the parent uh, in the parent button or link tag, you have to say group like this. Say sorry. Okay, equals to quotation mark means space. You want to say group like this. So now you need to copy this group and come down to the over. So you're not going to just say over, you're going to say group over. So, and you can see what is writing, a lot of CSS in there. So when you now over on any part of the button, it actually, the reaction actually works. That's cool, right? So now let's work on the other part of the code. I hope you are enjoying the tutorial. Please, if you are enjoying and getting value from this tutorial, please subscribe to my channel, like my video, and share so that more people just like you can enjoy the kind of content I am giving. All right, so the next thing I want to do after this icon is to actually style the image that we have. So one thing you need to know also in React is that once you set an image, you cannot have an image without alt. You have to provide it. It's going to give you that warning. It's not an error, but it's a warning. Now, if you have warning in your application, Netlify might bounce your app. It may not build. All right. So, and also in the alt, you cannot use image, you cannot use photo, you cannot use picture. So you have to use any other. So I can say my profile is just part of the rules that for their complaints. So now the image also, let's style it a little bit. So let's have it rounded through Excel, then MX auto typo there, auto, yeah, that's correct now. So then the width, I want it to be two two third two-third of the entire screen, and in the mid screen, I want it to be full width of full. So that means at the breakpoint of minimum of 768, it should have width of full width. That's fine. Then BG, should I have a background? It already has a background. So you can see the edges are now curved, the border radius. Now in this case, I actually set a background here. This image does not have any background before. I put in a background there, so that's why in that case I'm thinking of adding background, but in this case this already has a background. So which is pretty much everything we need to do on this particular page. So to move on to the next page, and if we compare what we have here and here, you can see we have something very close. Oh, so the text. All right, so I think I must have messed up something in there. All right, so I think maybe I didn't change the color. All right, so I think I didn't style the text, the color of the text, and also on this in this particular div. So, and also, one thing you should know is that making mistake is a good thing in programming. It also helps you to know the different way the application will not work. All right, so I'm going to display flex because I want both of these to either be on top of each other or side by side. So flex call. So flex call, you know what that means, right? So that means it's going to be in column. The direction is going to be column instead of row. So if it's row, it's going to be side by side. Column will be on top of each other. So that means H2 and the text are going to be on top of each other. And the next thing I'm going to do is justify center. Justify center H full. That means the width, the height is going to be full height. And at the medium screen, I want the padding top to be 0 and padding top generally, I want it to be 32. All right, so in the H1 also, I'm going to style it to have the text to be 4XL because I want the text to be a little big. And at the medium screen, I want the text to be 7XL. That means, any like once it reaches that breakpoint, medium screen and above, it should be a little bigger. And also font of bold, and I want the text to be white. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to differentiate the text from the background. And you can see now, we now have I'm a front-end developer sitting there looking pretty. So the next thing is to style the paragraph. So the paragraph here now, I'm going to have a text of gray and gray of 500, or maybe somewhere around 300 is fine. So then py padding top and bottom, I want it to be 4, and you can also check the value for that. So padding top, padding bottom, they have 1 rem, and that means it's going to have space. So maximum width of medium. So you can also check what value that is given. That's 28 rem. All right. So if you check it out now, you can see we now have the text here. Oh, this is weird. So let me remove this maximum width. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, so I think because I set the maximum width, that's why we're having the problem. So let's test the mobile screen. Let's see what this is going to look like. So if I reach the breakpoint, you can see the way stack under them. And so you can see this is mobile responsive, guys. You can see, and when you remember our navigation bar also is working properly the way it should. So I can see how this is going. All right. So let's just have that. Do I want to keep the maximum width? Let's say maximum width of SM. Okay, so let's see. It's still messing things up. Okay, so let me just put it at LG rather. So, and if you make typo, you can see it's still bad. So I'm going to just remove the max width anyway. So at least for our code to work. So far so good. This is what we have. And I think we might have to, I will have to break down this tutorial so that we can continue with the rest in some other tutorial. But before we go, I want to do the about page, and then just what we're going to have is have to do a portfolio, the social link, and some other component in there. Because if you look at the original part, you see we have this fancy looking this, and I'm going to show you how to actually do all of them. And after we have this about, we have this portfolio section, experience, and then the contact. I'm going to show you how to do all of that. But let's just do this about part before we go for the day. All right, so in the component, I'm going to create a new component. I'm going to call it about.jsx, just like that. And here I'm going to do RAFCE. So once I do this, I'm going to delete this because we don't need it. I can say about here. And in my app.jsx, I need to come and import it. So I'm going to say about and do this. And if you come back to our application here now, you see we actually have about at this lower part of the application. So that makes perfect sense. All right. So to move on from here, we're going to go into our about section. And guys, about section is really pretty simple. All right. So in the about section, I'm going to kind of just let's work with the structure first before we start customizing. So here I'm going to have a name attribute here, and I'm going to set it to this one. So in the name attribute here, I'm going to call it about, so that we are going to be able to target it with our Smoothscroll in React. So now after this div, we're going to have another div. So after that div, then we're going to have one more div inside it. That div is going to have a paragraph, and outside this div, we're going to have another paragraph. And I think that should do, yes. I think that should do. And maybe a BR tag, just like that, just to have some space under it. So now let's start adding content. So in the first paragraph, here, I want to have a title about, and then in the second paragraph here, let's have Lorem 50 also, just so we can have some text that will give us context. All right. So in the first div, like the topmost div, I'm going to have a class of bg gradient to bottom. Then I want it to move from gray 800. So you can actually type them together like this, and the extension will be able to help you to complete it. Text white, and then I want the width to be full. I want the height to be screen. That's that about that. So the next div here, we have a class name of let's see, max width of screen. Usually when you are designing like this, it's good you have two screens that you are looking at. that you are able to see your design as you are working with it. And you can see this is what we've done so far. So it's just this part I want to look this funny. And I think it's looking nice, really, actually. So this part now. So we have max width of screen LG. Then we want to have the padding of 4, MX auto, so margin left and right auto. So then I also want to display it flex and flex call, and I want to justify the item center and the width to be full, the height also to be full. And of course, guys, you can actually be checking the values to see what CSS rule they wrote in there. You can also put custom value. Like instead of using it directly here, you can say, you can put a bracket here and say 100%. It means the same thing. You can see. So, but you can just use their value full like that. All right. So after we are done with this particular div, we want to go inside the child div class name. We want to give it padding bottom of 8, and then the about text itself, we want to kind of give it an underline with a border bottom. So we're going to say text for Excel. So that means it will bump it up to look bigger. Font bold. If you make a typo, instead of font, you wrote front, the CSS rule will not click in. So inline and border bottom, border bottom, I think the border bottom is just B of 4. So that should look pretty. So if you look at this, you can see the border bottom looking nice already. So aside that, border bottom of 4, so we want to also style our text itself. Class name. So class name of text XL. So if I over the text, you can see text size of 1.25 rem and line height of that makes some sense. So the margin top should be 20, so that there will be space between the text and the title itself. So pretty much, if you look at it now, you can see this is looking nice, and the padding we have here is also looking very interesting. So guys, that's that for the about page. And like I said, I would like to break this into series so that we'll be able to complete it in the next one. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial so far. So let's look at what we've built so far. So far so good. This is what we have. And on the mobile screen, this is actually responsive. When you look at this, see that it's actually still working on mobile screen. If you check different phone version, you can see this is still looking pretty nice. And if you click this is supposed to scroll to about to portfolio, but there's no such thing as portfolio yet. So if you look at this also, you can see the current screen. This was supposed to be scrolling to the actual screen, but they will not scroll yet because we have not actually been using React Smoothscroll on all of those icons, all of those items rather. So, but that being said, if you have enjoyed this tutorial so far, please subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and share so that more people just like you know, can continue to enjoy the kind of tutorial that I'm making. If this has helped you in any way, please subscribe now. All right, so that will be it for today's tutorial. In the next tutorial, we're going to take it off by creating the side icons that we have here, and then the functionality to actually go to a different page. And after all of that, we're going to go on and create the other component like the portfolio. Then we'll move on to the experience and the contact. And that will be it for the project. So thank you for joining. See you in the next tutorial. Bye for now, and God bless you.